think one of the big things is we've got our innovation organization. It gives us the flexibility to take things that we see kind of 3, 5, and 7 years out and say, we're going to put a little bit of investment here. And frankly, it might be competitive with other parts of our business, but we know if we don't make a small bet there, we won't be prepared to scale it. We not only proved out that we can do it, we can scale it. And then it really moves into Horizon 1 where the business takes it and runs with it. And that incubation process has really allowed us to fail fast in a lot of cases. So we can do that down here without all of the, what I'll call the DNA at the top of the house getting in the way of it. More importantly, we've got a way now to scale it into the business so there is a handoff to let it go large later. I'm Jim Fowler from Nationwide, and this is the future of insurance.
Excellent. Jim, it's great to sit down with you. I had the pleasure, like a number of people, to sit in the audience and hear what was just a fantastic presentation about, yes, what you have going on at Nationwide, but I think people saw your title and were expecting it to be really technical, and you were talking about values and mindset and almost kind of a customer segmentation, but of the organization and the mindset of the people in it. And it honestly, like, as much as you can say this for an insurance talk, it blew people away. So good job on that. But I was so thankful that you agreed to come on and have a do an episode with me.
No, Bryan, thanks. It was a fun to do. I had a nice time at Reuters doing that presentation. But as you can tell, it's something I'm really passionate about. I think there's a change afoot, if you will.
That's great, and we're going to dig into all that. So before we do that, can you just give us a little bit of background on you and your work at Nationwide?
Yeah, so I've been at Nationwide now for the last 4 years. I came into Nationwide after 18 years at General Electric, where I served in a lot of different kind of business unit CIO roles and landed as the group CIO. And then I got a call from a friend who said, hey, there's a change happening at Nationwide. Would you like to come and meet the team? And I said, no. Said, don't know that I'm an insurance kind of guy. And they said, trust me, you want to meet these folks. And so I came and I met with the leadership team and the board, and was kind of blown away about how forward leaning they were from a technology perspective, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah. It was too exciting for you, is what that's what everyone outside of insurance thinks, is like, that's going to be too fast paced. Is interesting timing. You say, there was a change going on. There was, and Nation was a fantastic company before, but from my perspective, sort of watching the industry, and this is part of why I keep having Nationwide people on the show, it's been amazing to think about the scale of the company and the complexity of the business, not just insurance, but more broadly in financial services, and how much you all have been doing. And I know it's not easy, but the speed of execution and the scale of what you're executing on has really, as an observer, has blown me away. So yeah, you were coming in kind of right as this tip was about to be made.
Bryan, one of the things that just kind of struck me when I got here is one of the first things they did is they took me to, we have a museum inside the building, and they took me to the museum. And one of the first things that struck me is that every one of our CEOs throughout history has really focused on innovation, all the way back to Murray Lincoln, who was our founder almost 100 years ago. And I remember this one exhibit where they were showing this box, and it was kind of an early slideshow presentation machine that was from the 40s and 50s that an agent would take out to be able to kind of tell their story on insurance. And I was just struck by how innovation and technology were really a part of the dialogue up until when I interviewed for the job. I literally, our background is the Ohio Farm Bureau, and we have quite a few large farmers who run large organizations who are on our board, and two of them interviewed me. And I remember the interview very clearly because we talked about automation in the farming industry and how their yields and their business has been improved by new equipment that is driving itself around their farms.
Yeah.
And they said, this is what the future of Nationwide is going to look like in a very different way, but we're looking for somebody to come help us do that. So for me, what I found since I've been here is people are very forward leaning when it comes to using technology. They see it in the history. It's been an expectation of the job and part of the culture of the company.
I think that is really interesting. I don't think it's what people expect, but clearly, I mean, you're living it. But you have seen not just the implementation of technology, but that sort of cultural readiness and eagerness to push. I mean, like I mentioned, embedded. That you guys are way ahead of many in the market on that front. And that's something people are still sort of like, well, we don't know if this is going to happen or not. And Nationwide is laying tracks in that space. What is it, from your perspective, what does it take to be so open to some of these bets that, frankly, like saying this to someone earlier today, a lot of these bets, their payoff outlives the tenure of most CEOs. So to have that kind of that level of long-term willingness from an ROE standpoint is not common in the industry.
You know, when I got here, actually before I got here, when I was doing the interviews, I interviewed with a lot of people, but three of them were our current CEO, Kurt Walker,
yeah,
our previous CEO, Steve Rasmussen, and the head of our P&C business, Mark Bervin. And between the three of them, there's over 100 years of industry experience. And so I go into this discussion and I'm ready for hey, we've been doing this way for 100 years effectively. And what I heard was exactly the opposite. We've been doing this way for 100 years, and if we keep doing this for 100 years forward, we won't be here in 10.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to me that every one of them said the exact same thing, but in a different scenario.
Yeah.
And so I'd say the first thing that it takes is a leadership team that's bought in and believes, that recognize it and is willing to disrupt what they've done to be able to make sure they're protecting the future.
Yeah.
The second thing for me, and I didn't understand this till I got here. I'd never worked in a mutual before. And they think differently. I was in my first board meeting when we were talking about kind of forward-looking business, and somebody said, well, what are we going to do to give these profits back to our customers? 18 years in a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
I was like, what just happened? And then what I've kind of come to realize is the mutual was the original co-op. It was the original, how do I bring a group of people together who have a fundamental belief in how they help each other? Yeah. That's the second part that I think is the secret sauce for us, is that mutuality plays forward and making sure that we're making decisions today that protect our members, our customers, our partners in the future. And then the third one, and it's really John Carter in our financial services business who has brought this to life for me, is the technology isn't about technology for technology's sake. It's not just about getting cost out and efficiency, but it's about becoming the preferred partner for our customers, our intermediaries. John talks about the fact that in his business, he recognizes that there's a consolidation happening in financial services organizations where they want to be able to bring together stronger, but they want to have an electronic connection with their carriers, with their suppliers, their wholesalers, so that they can get stuff through faster with less friction, so they can spend more time on the human interaction side of what an advisor should be doing and not the clerical side.
Yeah.
So John really brought the customer side of this to light. So kind of those three things together, I think, are a secret sauce inside Nationwide that get not just the leadership team at the top behind us, but permeates through kind of all of the levels of the company.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to recognize it's not enough to have one or even two of those, because you need them to counterbalance. So I've talked to plenty of mutuals who use their position as a mutual as the reason why they're applying the brakes. Is, because we've been here 100, 150 years, whatever their history is, we have to ensure, we're stewards of the business. We have to ensure we're here for tomorrow. But if you lack that first thing that you saw in those interviews, you're missing the fact that, well, tomorrow's not a given, especially if you just keep doing what you've always done.
Now, Bryan, you said it exactly right. And I think it's that recognition that there's a balance of those things that come together. We don't have infinite resources. We have to be a good steward of the resources given to us by the members of the organization. But at the same time, it's about thinking forward for them, not getting stuck in what we've done in the past.
Yeah. This is a potentially touchy subject in the industry, but we're not known for being fast. And I'm sure as part of your initial, like, oh, I don't want to interview for that. The joke in the insurtech world, it's not really a joke, but it's any deal is going to take 18 months. And the question really is it 18 months to get it signed or 18 months to be implemented? But that's, for a startup, that's probably more than their runway is. So that's difficult. And it's not to say you guys have been the fastest company in the world or, everything's done in a week, but you have also, it seems from the outside, made decisions and executed fairly rapidly, on the scale of insurance companies. And certainly at the scale of Nationwide, even how huge it is. How are there things that you can point to and say, this is one of the ways that we enable that speed? Because like if your clock is 10 years until, we would be in question, that doesn't allow you a lot of 3 to 9 year implementations before you're out of time. So you do have to move faster. How have you enabled that?
I think one of the big things is we've got our innovation organization. Innovation and digital kind of are solid line to two leaders, our chief strategy officer, Mike Mahaffey, and myself.
Okay.
And that organization gives us the flexibility to take things that are more horizon 3, things that we see kind of 3, 5, and 7 years out, and say, we're going to put a little bit of investment here. And frankly, it might be competitive with other parts of our business, but we know if we don't make a small bet there, we won't be prepared to scale it. So the way we think about it is use that innovation team to try things. I mentioned at Reuters 360. This is something that we did it with a separate team off to the side. We reused some of our existing products, but we kind of gave them small group of people, less than 20 people. We said for 18 months, incubate this.
Yeah.
And we're now at the point where we've proven certain facts to be true about that incubation. And now we're saying it's time to scale it, moving to Horizon 2. Then it becomes a joint venture. So think about a joint venture inside Nationwide where those two groups come together, both the what I'll call the scaled personal lines business and this 360 business. And they're going to scale it to a point where we not only proved out that we can do it, we can scale it. And then it really moves into Horizon 1 where the business takes it and runs with it. And that incubation process has really allowed us to fail fast in a lot of cases. There's a lot of stuff in the innovation team that we looked at and said, yep, nope, not working. We moved on. We had a product called Spire that we tried in Texas, and we learned a lot from it. And we turned it off and we flipped it into the next thing. So we can do that down here without all of the what I'll call the DNA at the top of the house getting in the way of it.
Yeah.
More importantly, we've got a way now to scale it into the business. So there is a handoff to let it go large later.
Yeah. That is really incubation is really interesting. You either don't see that, or when you see it, it's sort of like that's the place where ideas they don't ultimately go anywhere, right? Like, oh, we tried it out and then sort of forget. So, and not everything should go on, but everything shouldn't not go on.
Yeah. It's funny because literally the building where these people sit is called the co-op. When you walk in, it looks like a grain silo. When you get inside it, there are like different fields where we're incubating things. And so that's the whole idea is how do we harvest out of the co-op into the main line of the business? And that's the whole structure behind how we designed what the co-op is.
It's interesting. I mean, it's like clearly sending the message, like this is how you should think about it as you're growing the future.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, I mean, speaking of the future, what are the things that you see sort of, early days percolating, whether that's for Nationwide or for the industry, that you think are on that sort of 10-year horizon of relevance that we do need to be thinking about as an industry, but, the day to start planting the seeds is here?
Yeah, I think the thing that's probably at the top of everybody's mind, and we talk like we're probably a mile down the road, but we're just at the very beginning, and that's this idea of personalized products and services. I think the industry's first try with that with usage-based insurance and telematics all the way back to what Progressive done, now come through kind of mainstream insurance is now splintering off into what do you do for monitoring inside a home, or how do you use data coming off of a watch to be able to run the life insurance business, or how are we using data coming out of your banks and your credit cards to help plan your financials better. So this really personalized set of products and services that's designed for you, which is going to bring together kind of the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning with kind of the reams of data that we have about people, and cross bounds in this area of kind of ethical data use. And how do we do something where we're creating a personalized product for Bryan that Bryan once created, right? Yeah. That he says, yes, I want you to use this data to do this. I think that is the place where our time and investment is going right now, is how to pull those things together.
It's an interesting one to me because I think it's one people have been talking about and struggling to implement, and kind of to the point of the things that don't make it out of incubation. So then some folks just kind of give up on it and say, well, it's just hype. But maybe it's just early, or we haven't implemented it right. We haven't thought through the use cases, the devices and the data from them. Maybe that's not there yet, or a way of using it. But you sort of have to stick through. I mean, if we learned anything from Progressive on telematics, that was a long slog before that was something viable.
And it gave them, I think, a really good place to look at data and understand how to take risk.
Yeah.
And I think now go beyond the little dongle that can go in your car to the device that you walk around with every day to, the house I'm sitting in today that's got sensors everywhere. There's no shortage of data. I think the trick for the insurance industry is how to use it.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is I think the regulators want us to figure it out. I think a lot of people kind of throw up the regulator and say, hey, they're going to be a hindrance to this. I actually think the opposite. I think the more that we can show them that what we're doing is to the benefit of the customer, where they have the choice on how to use that data, I think the more supportive they're going to be. But I think we got to get the models figured out right. We got to figure out how to use that data to be a better predictor of risk.
So you bring up regulation, which is one of the common, we can't do this because kind of excuses we get. Another is, well, we've never done it this way, or we've always done it this other way. What are some of the other sort of sacred cow barriers that the industry is facing that you think it's time for us to overcome, and how?
I think the other big thing here is it really does go back to the data. And I think we've got this siloed world of risk still that we think about, where you think about personal property and your auto risk separate from your home risk, separate from life, separate from retirement. And in the reality, it's all about protecting a person, and it's protecting a person in different seasons of life. And I think the biggest barrier to break down is that this belief we can't cross those boundaries. Coming from outside the industry, I can be dumb about things.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm dumb about is that I don't believe that, I'll say it the opposite. I believe that there is now the technology and data available to get more complex risk elements together in a single product that a person consumes. I think we're still stuck in how we've looked at the actuarial science of the past in a specific risk area. And I think that was true when you had humans that were having to do the majority of the prediction with the data. And I think the actuary of the future is going to be the one who can say, I'm going to train the system to be able to do the work I used to do at a product level, because I need to step back and look at all of the risks together and think about, how do I design a risk program for Bryan Falchuk that actually meets him at different pieces of life and turns on and off protections as he needs it through his life.
Yeah.
That's my vision. Again, and I think this belief, though, that's got to get knocked down, that you can't do that. And I think it's based on not understanding where technology has come from a prediction perspective. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. Jim, I think if you were trying to hold on to the idea that you're not an insurance person, I think the ship has sailed. I think what you just talked about is, that is very much where, when we think about experience-based exposures, that's where it's heading. And of course, you're sort of playing in what would enable that. So it isn't just a pipe dream. So you definitely have your finger on the pulse of where the industry is going. I'm sorry, we've really, but I can't thank you enough for sitting down and taking some time. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Bryan, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you to Jim for taking some time out of his day and sitting down to do this conversation. It was a quick one, but it's rich. Talking to Jim, you really get a lot really quickly. And it's just so interesting to me to see someone who, came from outside, definitely, technology and enablement focused, but he gets it. And he gets what's possible in this industry if we had the tools to enable the kinds of things that we're curious about, that maybe reflect where the industry is going, or more importantly, where the customer base is going. Jim and I kept talking after the recording. I was like, I should have had this on about kind of the direction of things and the mindset that it takes for that. So I know, I don't even have to hope. I know for those of you watching, you will have gotten a lot out of this. Jim's fantastic. And yeah, if you ever get the chance to see him speak live, you would take a lot from it as well. He's great, really great energy, but great message, and something you can really relate to. So hope that people dug into this and thought about, well, what does that mean in my context? And what if we were to think differently like this, or we were to take that kind of mindset and apply it to our context and the resources we have and the customer segment, the space that we're in, what could we achieve? So lots to stick in your brain and think about with this one. Thank you again to Jim and the team at Nationwide for giving him up for a bit. It was great to spend some time with him. Thank you to all of you. I hope that these are valuable. And if you're just catching this one episode and you're wondering, well, what about all the great other ones, including lots of other people from Nationwide I've had on, but from other companies that aren't Nationwide as well, and lots of different perspectives throughout the industry. You got PNC, life and health, US, foreign, kind of all over the solution providers, but lots and lots of carrier takes, traditional and startup. So I try to give you a rich sense of everything going on in our space and what's possible. And even if that guest exact stuff isn't relevant to exactly what you do, maybe that's good. Maybe it brings a bit of that outside perspective, but still relevance because it's still insurance. I mean, think about all the things Jim got to bring to Nationwide by coming from GE and coming from outside. What if you had some level of freshness to what you're exposed to? And that's why I think we need to listen to the stories and the lessons of so many people from so many different parts of this industry, take it in, grow, and see, well, what could we do in our space? What could I do in my space to help move the industry forward? So if that appeals to you, you should definitely head to future-of-insurance.com. You can get more on the podcast. You can get the books, thought leadership, lots of other stuff. The whole point is I give this stuff to you and I get guests on like Jim to help us get inspired, find direction, and move forward. So with that, thank you all, and I hope to see you back next time.